You don't exist on paper. Your name isn't in any database civilians can access. Your unit patch means nothing to anyone outside a very specific circle of people who've earned the right to know what it means. You operate in the space between what governments will admit to and what actually happens in the dark corners of the world. You don't fight wars the way wars are supposed to be fought. You end them before they start, or you make them disappear before anyone finds out they existed. This is the world of U.S. Special Operations Forces, not the Hollywood version. Not the version where men in black balaclavas rappel through skylights to triumphant music. The real version where the average operator has more graduate-level education than most corporate executives, speaks at least 2 languages, and has deployed to places that don't appear on news broadcasts because the mission was never supposed to happen. Channel name explores the psychology of power, competence, and systems most people never see. If that's what you're here for, keep watching. There are roughly 70,000 people in U.S. Special Operations Forces. That sounds like a lot until you realize the total U.S. military is about 1.3 million. Special Operations is roughly 5% of that. And within that 5%, there are tiers, circles within circles. The unit you've heard of is probably not the most capable one. The most capable ones you likely haven't heard of. That's intentional. Understanding what these forces actually do requires understanding why they were created in the first place. The United States military is the most powerful conventional force in human history. It can project overwhelming firepower to almost anywhere on the planet within hours. But firepower isn't always the answer. Sometimes the answer is 12 people who speak Pashto, know the tribal politics of a specific valley in eastern Afghanistan, and can build enough trust with local leaders over 6 months that the village stops harboring the network feeding intelligence to the enemy. That's not a job for a mechanized division. That's a job for special forces, specifically the Army's Green Berets, whose entire doctrine is built around something called unconventional warfare, the ability to train, advise, and fight alongside indigenous forces in denied or contested environments. The Green Berets are the Army's oldest special operations unit, with roots going back to the Office of Strategic Services in World War II. Each team, called an Operational Detachment Alpha, or OODA, has 12 soldiers. Every single one of them is cross-trained in at least 2 specialties: communications, weapons, engineering, medicine, or intelligence. The team sergeant has typically been in the Army for 15 years before getting to this assignment. The medical sergeant, the 18 Delta, can perform emergency surgery in a mud hut with tools that fit in a rucksack. He has more practical trauma medicine experience than most civilian emergency room physicians because he's been using those skills for real in combat for a decade. The team operates independently for months at a time. No one is coming to save them. They save themselves, and they save the people they're working with. But Green Berets are not raid forces. That's a common misconception. Their job is to work by, with, and through local populations. The raid force, the unit built specifically to go through a door at 3 in the morning and neutralize a high-value target with surgical precision. That's the 75th Ranger Regiment. Rangers are not special forces in the traditional sense. They are a large-scale light infantry unit, roughly 3,500 soldiers, trained to conduct direct action raids, airfield seizures, and large-scale combat operations at a level of speed and violence that most infantry units cannot match. Rangers run where others walk. They breach what others can't breach. They train so relentlessly in their specific skills that the average Ranger rifle team can clear a compound faster than you can describe it. In the invasion of Panama in 1989, Ranger battalions seized 2 airfields simultaneously in the middle of the night, under fire, and had them operational within hours. That's the Ranger mission: rapidly seize and control terrain through overwhelming controlled aggression. Then there are the Navy SEALs. No special operations unit in American history has been more mythologized, more marketed, and more misunderstood than the SEALs. The name stands for Sea, Air, and Land, which tells you the basic concept: a force that can infiltrate from the ocean, through the air, or over land to conduct direct action, reconnaissance, or counterterrorism. The SEALs emerged from the underwater demolition teams of World War II, the men who swam onto enemy beaches before invasions to map obstacles and clear mines. President Kennedy expanded their mission in 1962, pushing them into Vietnam as a counterinsurgency force. They became legends in the Mekong Delta, running operations so aggressive and effective that the Viet Cong put bounties on them. SEAL training, specifically BUD/S, Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL training, has a dropout rate that typically exceeds 70%. The centerpiece is Hell Week, 5.5 days of continuous operations on roughly 4 hours of total sleep, cold water immersion, constant physical stress, and psychological pressure designed to find the people who will not quit. Not the strongest people, not the fastest swimmers, the ones who will not quit. Because in the water, 200 meters from a hostile shore at 2 in the morning, strength alone doesn't save you. The decision to keep moving does. SEAL Teams 1 through 10 handle the broader force's missions. But within the SEAL community, there is one unit that operates at a different level entirely. SEAL Team 6, officially the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, or DEVGRU, is where the very best SEALs go after years of experience at the regular teams. The selection process is brutal and largely undisclosed. What's known is that DEVGRU operators are among the most individually capable combatants in any military force on Earth. They have more trigger time, more real-world hostage rescue experience, and more advanced training in breaching, marksmanship, and close-quarters combat than almost anyone alive. They are the unit that raided a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan on May 2, 2011, and killed Osama bin Laden. That mission, Neptune Spear, required flying 4 hours into Pakistani airspace without that country's knowledge, conducting a compound assault in the dark, and exfiltrating, all in less than 40 minutes. DEVGRU doesn't get the attention it once did. The years after the bin Laden raid saw considerable public exposure, and the unit has worked to pull back from public consciousness. That's by design. The same principle applies to the Army's equivalent. 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, known publicly as Delta Force, officially as CAG, the Combat Applications Group. Delta was created in 1977 by Colonel Charles Beckwith, who had trained with the British SAS and came back convinced the Army needed a dedicated counterterrorism unit with surgical strike capability. Delta's selection process is a 2 to 4 week assessment and selection course where candidates are pushed to physical and psychological failure repeatedly, with no feedback, no encouragement, and no clear standard. You're either selected or you're not. You rarely find out why. Delta operators are not just excellent shooters. Many have advanced degrees. Some are fluent in 4 or 5 languages. They work across the full spectrum of operations, hostage rescue, direct action against high-value targets, and intelligence operations that blur the line between what a soldier does and what an intelligence officer does. In the early 2000s, General Stanley McChrystal restructured the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, which coordinates Delta and DEVGRU, into what became one of the most effective targeting machines in the history of warfare. At its peak in Iraq, JSOC was conducting multiple raids per night, disrupting networks faster than those networks could reconstitute. It was industrialized special operations, and it worked in ways that a conventional military force simply cannot replicate. But special operations is not only about direct action and counterterrorism. Some of the most consequential work happens without a single shot being fired. The Army Civil Affairs units, part of the Special Operations Command structure, work in austere environments to stabilize communities, restore infrastructure, and build the kind of trust that prevents insurgencies from taking root. A civil affairs team in a post-conflict province can do more long-term damage to an enemy's recruitment base than an airstrike. They're building schools, restoring water systems, working with local governments. Their job is to make the environment inhospitable to extremism by making life worth living. It's unglamorous. It rarely makes the news. It might be the most strategically important work in the entire special operations community. Psychological Operations, or PSYOP, now officially rebranded as Military Information Support Operations, works the same space from a different angle. These are the people who understand how populations think, what they fear, what they want, and how information travels through communities. They design messaging campaigns, produce media, work with local journalists and influencers to shift narratives in ways that support U.S. objectives without anyone knowing the U.S. is involved. In Vietnam, they ran leaflet drops. In the modern information environment, the battlefield looks very different. PSYOP operators are essentially strategic communication specialists with a security clearance and the training to deploy forward and operate in denied environments. The Air Force contributes to this world through its own special operations units, the Special Tactics Squadrons, which include combat controllers, pararescuemen, and special reconnaissance operators. Combat controllers are one of the most quietly elite communities in the entire U.S. military. Their job is to go in first before anyone else and control the air battle. They can call in airstrikes, land large aircraft on improvised runways, and manage the airspace over a combat zone simultaneously, all while fighting as infantry. To become a combat controller, you complete rescue swimmer training, static line jump school, military freefall school, combat dive school, and a year-long technical training pipeline that teaches you to manage airspace at a level that civilian air traffic controllers train years to reach. The dropout rate from the training pipeline is over 80%. Pararescuemen, known as PJs, do one thing better than anyone on Earth. They go to where you are, no matter how bad it is, and bring you home alive. They're the ones who deploy via helicopter into active firefights to treat and evacuate the wounded. Their motto is, "These things we do that others may live." Every PJ is a certified paramedic. Most have additional trauma specialties. They've been trained in halo parachuting, combat diving, and mountaineering. You are not getting rescued in a more professionally capable way by any force in any military anywhere. Marine Raiders, the Marine Corps Forces Special Operations Command, or MARSOC, are the newest addition to the Special Operations family, established in 2006. They combine the Marine Corps' traditional emphasis on infantry excellence with special operations training in language, culture, unconventional warfare, and direct action. Critics of MARSOC sometimes argue that the Corps already had elite units in its reconnaissance battalions, and the Raiders represent institutional politics as much as genuine operational need. Proponents argue that having the Marine Corps fully integrated into the Special Operations Command structure creates important capabilities, particularly in the Pacific Theater, where Marine expeditionary culture and naval integration matter. What all of these units share, beneath the different uniforms and different missions and different reputations, is a philosophy of selection over training. The military belief is that you can teach almost anyone to do almost anything with enough time and repetition, but you cannot teach someone to keep moving when their body is done and their brain is screaming at them to stop. You cannot train someone into the kind of judgment that lets them make a life or death decision in 3 seconds with incomplete information and get it right. You either have the psychological architecture for this work or you don't. Selection processes are designed to find it, not create it. The average person who makes it through SEALBud/S is not the former college athlete who showed up in the best shape. It's usually the quiet one, the one who seemed unremarkable in the early weeks, the one who never looked like he was suffering even when everyone else was drowning. Mental resilience doesn't advertise itself. That's part of what makes it resilience. There's something else worth sitting with. These forces exist at the intersection of violence and restraint that most people never have to navigate. The precision required is extraordinary. In a hostage rescue situation, a DevGru operator might be shooting a terrorist from 4 feet away with a hostage between them. He has to put the round exactly where it needs to go, or someone he came to save dies. That's not a scenario where you can be almost accurate. There is no almost. And yet these operators have to carry that same level of precision across months of deployment, mission after mission, with the weight of every decision compounding over a career that might span 20 years. The psychological cost is real. The suicide rate among special operations veterans is significantly higher than in the general population and higher than in the conventional military. The culture of toughness that selects for resilience also creates conditions where asking for help feels like weakness. Organizations like the Green Beret Foundation, the SEAL Future Fund, and the Special Operations Warrior Foundation exist specifically because the people built to handle the hardest things often have the hardest time asking for help after. You don't join these forces because it's safe. You don't join because the pay is remarkable, because it isn't. A Delta Force Master Sergeant with 20 years of experience and 15 combat deployments makes somewhere between $80,000 and $110,000 a year. The private military contractor who recruits him the day he retires offers him 3 times that to do the same job with less oversight. Most of them take it. The system that bills these people doesn't pay them what they're worth. It relies on the fact that what drives them isn't money. It's the work itself, the belonging, the specific gravity of being in a room full of people who are exactly as serious as you are about something that matters. And somewhere right now, in a location you'll never hear about, a 12-man team is moving through terrain that doesn't appear on civilian maps, toward an objective that won't be in any press release, doing work that will change the outcome of something significant without anyone ever knowing their names. That's the machine. That's how it works. That's what it costs. And that's what it's for.